council of the whole out of order. So this is been referred to us as a committee of the whole on the issue of, it's number 10051, an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Gardner, chapter 600 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, Parking Meters. And this was sponsored by Councilor Boone to amend it so that in chapter 600-18, 3-hour parking meters, in subsection B, I think the motion is to delete B entirely, right?
That's correct.
So B is, the actual location of meters to be placed within the above location shall be designated and may from time to time be changed by vote of the City Council Public Safety Committee. And so the sentiment is that, Councilor Boone can speak for himself, obviously, but the basic sentiment of it is that Councilor Boone and maybe some others of us don't believe that something that substantial should be handled by a standing committee alone without any input or decision-making on the part of the City Council. So that's why we have this informal meeting. So what you have before you is one packet that has the yellow highlighter on it. The Clerk Agnelli was good enough to photocopy various parts of the city code that has provisions where certain standing committees have the authority to do exactly what this parking meter ordinance does. And so if we change this parking meter ordinance, maybe we should also look at changing the other ordinances to be consistent. I don't know, that's what we're here to talk about. And what I did is I put together the other
kind of a summary. Kind of a summary.
It's kind of a summary of it, and it's the same thing. These are the specific code provisions where a standing committee is able to make a decision on abatements or parking meters or disposal of property, etc., without input from the city council. So that's where we're at with it. I will just point out also, though, that with respect to this, when I was doing my homework on this particular matter, I looked at, and it's in my sheet, my 2-page packet here. If you look at the second page under parking meters, so what we're looking at right now is code 600-18, the one I just talked about. But if you look at code 600-9, it seems to conflict with 18. And I think we're in a little bit of a quagmire there, because 600-9 reads, this code section, well, I said it seems to create a conflict, because what it says is that the city council shall have the power to designate the location of all parking meter zones, parking meters, and parking meter spaces within the city. And 18 says the safety committee does the parking meters. Councilor Boudreau.
It's actual placement versus location. Like, that's the difference between the two. Like
Say that again?
so the city council states where the location of the parking meters goes, but then the subcommittee can state the actual placement as in there, within the
zone?
within the stated region.
But 600-9 says that the city council has the power to designate zones, parking meters, parking meter spaces. So it says zones and parking meters.
Oh. I was always under a different impression then.
Am I reading that wrong, Councilor? Excuse me.
Well,
Can I?
no, of course, it's an informal.
Okay. So if I read this correctly, I mean, I'll read it out loud. Code 600-9, this code section seems to create a conflict with code 600-18. Code 600-9 provides the city council with, in quotations, shall have the power to designate the location of all parking meter zones, parking meters and parking meter spaces within the city. Is this verbatim?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the call of the code.
So the way I read it is kind of, I think I'm on the same page as Councilor Boudreau, is that we have the power to designate the location of all parking meter zones. I'm not sure about, I don't know, I could be wrong.
Well, it has zones, and then after zones, it
It
says
says
parking meters.
and
So parking meters doesn't mean the same
spaces.
thing as parking zones. So they mean two different things. One means zones and the other means parking
Yes,
meters.
well,
And then dash 18, the one that we're dealing with right now tonight, is the actual location of meters to be placed within the above location shall be designated and may from time to time be changed by vote of the City Council Public Safety Committee. So they, I don't know about what you think. I
know
think
it's
it conflicts.
It's always been more or less a street or a portion of a street would be designated
Yeah,
by City
from
Council.
this location to this
To this
location.
The
location.
zones.
Yeah,
That
the
would be a
zone.
zone.
But
The
then-
actual placements
Of a
of the
meter.
parking meters is left to the safety committee. Today, and that was probably drafted before we had traffic commission. Because one has to be careful at the parking meters, and I think the reason for that was is the parking meters wouldn't interfere with the flow of traffic or, the specific meters within that zone.
I just don't think parking meters have anything to do with traffic. That's just my opinion. I think that it's just the opposite of traffic, because if the car's just not doing anything, you can always park on the side of the road.
I know,
The difference is, do you want to park without a meter, or do you want to park with a meter? I don't think it has anything to do with traffic, that's just my opinion. But I don't know, I just think because 600-9 mentions parking meter zones, so the city council can establish the zones, which is in 600-18, which is name of street, Central Street, City Hall Avenue, Main Street, Parker Street. So the city council says where the zones are gonna be, but then the very next item is parking meters. That would be where the meters go.
And I don't mind getting into this part of it, but I think that the fundamental question is, should the specific location of a meter be determined by the council as a whole or by the safety committee?
Right.
My view is, and we can change the ordinance to be what we think it should be, but I understand your concern about the conflict, but I think the specific location should remain with the safety committee.
Absolutely.
In the zones with the council as a whole.
Okay.
That's my view.
The only reason I brought it up is because if 600-9 gives that authority only to the city council, then we don't need to change anything. It's already with the city council. That's if everybody wants to change it to the city council. I think they definitely conflict, so we're gonna have to fix it.
I don't know that they're in conflict in the sense that I'm looking at the numbers of the code. It almost looks like number 18 was placed subsequently after the original one.
Yeah, but they're both there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, what does
Granted,
everybody
that
think
power
about,
to the subcommittee.
and you're right, let's focus on whether or not, what does everybody think? Should, Councilor Buccio, I know you want to talk, and
want
it's
Boone to
Councilor Boone's baby, if you will.
That's who I want to hear
So
from.
do we think it's a good idea to keep this type of thing, this decision-making process, within a 3-member standing committee, or is it something that should go to the full city council? Councilor Boone?
Thank you, Mr. President. As I think I stated in the last meeting, the subcommittee is supposed to study and report and not necessarily make decisions for the entire committee. It's certainly plausible an entire section of the city could have parking meters put in or removed, and 8 of us would not have a vote. It's plausible. So my opinion, when I first stumbled upon this, I think we were going to do the old police station, City Hall Ave, and I had no say, and I was kind of frustrated that I had no say. So I still believe that it should be up to the council as a whole to finally make the decision, but the authority still remains with the Public Safety Committee. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Buccio?
This is informal, right?
Yes.
All right. Is there an issue that brought this up? Like,
Yeah, just what I
it's- Yeah,
described.
it's just that. Like, I guess I just don't like. What I'm seeing is if we put a period after zones and took the rest out of -9, that would solve that. But
Say that again?
if we put a
In
period,
in number 9, in
yeah,
subsection 9, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I don't have any. Thank you.
After the word zone, yeah.
This is something along the lines of Councilor Boone's theory on this, and the reason why he thinks it's should be different, is that, how about this? and I talked to Councilor Johnson about this just briefly. What if we do it the way, is it possible to do it the way we do everything else? And that is refer, like say somebody wants, say the issue is to get rid of a parking meter. It comes to the city council on the city council agenda. It gets referred to the Public Service Committee and Traffic Commission for study and report. Then they come back and give us the report, and then the city council votes on it. Anybody think, Councilor Boudreaux?
So I guess I'll be the one to introduce this, because it's gonna come down eventually. Parking meters aren't, as lovely as they are not people. Eventually, it's gonna come up, because we have a whole list of the different things that are done in different standing committees. I know our committee deals with people. We deal with people that are sometimes down on their luck. And I don't want to see this set precedent that now a young family has to come in front of the entire city council to discuss why they didn't pay their water bill or enter in the rear. I just don't want to set that precedent.
But using my idea that I just had, they'd be doing all that still at the committee level. Then the committee would be reporting back to the city council. There's no reason why the applicant or the appellant, whatever it is, would have to come back to the city council. We'd virtually be taking your work. We usually take the recommendation of the committee because we know it's been studied and it's been worked on. We usually take it. We don't have to, but it would give Councilor Boone the satisfaction or the comfort that at least we had a say in it and we looked at it, because you could argue against it. Whereas right now we can't. Nobody can argue against it. We don't have a say.
Many years ago, you didn't have any committees on the council, or subcommittees, and everything came up, and it was ludicrous. It became a family circus. The potholes and the argument over. I mean, it was. And this is the reason the council decided to put a lot of these things in the hands of the committee to streamline the process, make it more. Say easier, but less embarrassing for individuals to approach. For example, as Councilor Boudreaux has put up, not that this particular case is embarrassing, but I think Councilor Boudreaux summed it up very nicely. If we took out the words parking meters and parking meter spaces in the city, that after that period, we still, as a council, which was the intent, would set up the zones as we've done along. But the exact placement of those, I mean, it's up to the safety committee to go out and sometimes and actually visibly visit these areas to make sure they're not conflicting with somebody's curb cut or so on. But to start doing that with all 11 members of the council, I think it could be a little bit cumbersome and overburdensome.
The other thing about it is that a matter that might come up before the safety committee for a specific location of a parking meter, everybody's agenda are published. We get everybody's agenda, we know what's in them, we have the opportunity to attend the meeting if we wish. We have input into the members of that particular committee. If we are concerned about a particular thing or a particular location, we can submit materials. It's not as if we don't have the opportunity to participate in that process, even if we're not a member of that committee. We're aware of it, we can communicate about it, we can participate if we wish. I think that the way we have it set up now with specific committees having the authority within our own ordinances to resolve certain matters makes sense, including the reason raised by Councilor Cormier, that it would become unnecessarily, I think, cumbersome to get into the weeds of a particular issue. And if a matter, for example, that came up on the service committee about the abatement of a particular water bill, it might be the recommendation of the committee to do a certain thing if we follow the example or the scenario that you've suggested. But then if it come up for the, it'd have to come up for the council vote. Well, what, well, how much was it to begin with? And how much, why such a big abatement? And I want to hear from the people and their explanations. And that could be a matter that I think is unnecessary. And I'm not aware of any, aside from the fact that it came up in Councilor Boone's review of the code, that this seemed to be something that maybe the council as a whole should consider. I'm not aware of any particular abuse or problem that has arisen associated with the process that we now have in place. And my view is, it isn't broken, we shouldn't fix it, except for maybe the conflicting language that they would point to.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm in favor of the change to have the safety committee study and report back to the city council for us to vote on for a couple of reasons. We're not always going to have the council that we have today. We're not always going to, we may at some point have 3 people in the safety committee who might have a bone to pick with, say, a business that is in South Gardner, because it has been talked about putting parking meters down there. So if you have a committee who is completely in charge of saying those parking meters, we want to put parking meters there and that's where we're going to put them, and the city council hasn't voted on it, then those parking meters could be there. They could be put there. So I think that when it comes to the whole, parking meters affect the entire city. It's not an individual. I'm not sure if I really support having the abatements come before. It would depend on how it would be presented to the city council, because it is personal. Although, if you think about it, the people who are in such arrears, their names and addresses and how much they're in arrears are all made public in the paper. So eventually, those people are going to be publicized one way or another, whether it's on the council floor for an abatement or whether it's in the paper because they haven't paid their arrears. But when it comes to the parking meters, I think it affects the entire city. I think that a subcommittee of 3 should not make the complete determination as to where the parking meters should be. I think that the city council should have the same scenario as the majority of the items that come before us is refer, they study and report back to us, and then we vote. I don't think it's an encumbersome thing. We have many items that get referred to a committee, they study and report, and then it comes to the city council. This is just one more thing. It's not something that should be blown, I don't think it's blown out of proportion by doing something like that. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. There's a couple of hands going up. I just wanted to, I have, I think, a good example in my head. Chairman Johnson would probably agree with me on the class 1, 2, and 3 licenses. The city council addresses each and every one of those licenses. It's not a big deal usually, but I mean, your committee could just do it on its own. Maybe we should just go the other way and start giving the subcommittees more decision-making powers, because those are just pretty much rubber stamp, you know, as long as they have their taxes paid. And,
yeah, we take a report from the police department.
and it comes back here, sometimes we have 25 licenses that we're looking at. I don't see us going till midnight on those things. I think Councilor Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, reading through both of these, I don't see that huge gray area. I mean, the subcommittee can't just say there's gonna be parking meters in South Gardner because there's no zone in South Gardner. That
Right.
has to become the city of a whole.
But if there was a zone established, the Public Safety Committee could say where they're gonna go.
I mean, all it says is actual spaces, actual placement of the parking meters. From the way, if you were reading this,
Yeah, so if the zone, so say the city council put a zone in from Prospect Street School to the Pewter Howell. Well, the public safety could put it right in front of a business they don't like, that's the point. And there's nothing the city
Yeah,
council
but
could do about it.
as you pointed out, this says that we decide which parking meters we use, what the zone is, and what are the spaces.
Yeah,
If you read this, then the actual placement of where in that space,
so what does the public safety do?
that's what safety committee is doing. They're actually placing it in the space. If you're reading this,
Oh, you think that the public safety is just, but the treasurer
like where
does
on the
that.
curb does it have to go?
The treasurer is the one that's actually planting that meter, because we looked at, that's in here too. So the treasurer is the one that actually makes sure that the things get planted where the public safety said it's gonna go.
Oh, yeah. But the location is done by the committee.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
Euless puts it.
But I think Council Cormier agrees with me that the city council looks like we have the control of where it's gonna go. But both us and the public safety committee has control of where that spot where that parking meter is going to go.
Which is the one thing most of us are saying needs to be fixed.
Mr. President, I
Yeah, Council Gardner.
just have to ask a question,
Sure.
and then I'm gonna follow up. When's the last time you saw this safety committee or any previous safety committee suggest parking meters, location, or whatnot in this city?
Connor
I have been
Street
here
years ago.
since 2010.
New ones?
I have not seen anything come to this council from the safety committee to add parking meters to any location in the city.
Connor Street
I
3
could
years
be,
ago.
I think that came from the mayor. I believe it came from the mayor.
Well, who had-
And it all comes from the mayor. I don't think that this, I understand.
We created the.
But I don't think that the safety committee has come right out and said, we want these parking meters in this particular zone. I don't think I've ever seen that.
No.
I'm not trying to be
That's not-
argumentative, I'm not trying to be
No, that's not how that works. The safety committee is given some issues that come up, and then we,
no, I understand how it works. I'm just
You're right.
asking the question, when's the last time?
but they're still voting on it.
I
Three people are
I
still voting,
understand
whether
that.
it comes from the mayor, or whether it comes from the traffic commission, or whether it comes from Dane. The public safety is still voting on it. I think that's the issue.
Just making the point.
Yeah, okay. Hey, did you want to follow up?
No, I think I just did.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Councilor Bloom.
One more time, just, let me throw this out there. Let's say the West Street parking lot. Public Safety Committee wanted to put in parking meters throughout West Street parking lot. Would we have a say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we always do.
Isn't it zoned already for that whole area?
No, that's
for
a
parking
municipal
meters?
parking lot. It's not a parking meter.
Why you want to do
Not a
that?
metered
We'd
lot.
have to
Not
zone.
anymore. It was that one time.
Yeah, well, we changed the zone.
Right,
Change the zone.
Isn't that whole zone already
No.
Not for
No,
parking meters.
parking?
No.
Parking meters? It's
No, we
zoned
just got
as a
this,
city
just these.
downtown?
All we got is these, Central Street, City Hall Ave, Main Street, Parker Street, Pleasant Street, and West Line Street, and West Street.
I think the last one we did was
West Street between Parker and Oak.
Connor Street.
Council has to establish the zones, nobody's ever disputed that.
Yeah.
But the council does have the power. Just don't create a zone.
That's right, we don't.
So,
That's all.
final comment. Mr. Councilor Boudreau brought up Connor Street. And Councilor Cormier reminded me that it ended up coming to the council as a whole, but it didn't have to. That decision could have been made by just the three.
No, it was a zone
No.
change.
No, it was a zone change.
It was a newly created zone
No.
on Connor Street
I think we did that on,
because we took away the parking meters in front of the
Right.
police.
and I think we also did that over where Haywood Wakefield Place is on
Council,
Central Street.
council takes care of the zone
Right.
section.
I was against that zone, by the way, still am.
The council does have quite a bit of say.
So the question is, simply, we just have the parking meters in front of us tonight. There's other things, there's not that many things, I've got them all with the help of the clerk, I think we found everything, there's only a few things that standing committees get to do on its own. But for purposes of the parking meter issue, do we think it's good to keep it with the Public Safety Committee and let the three members vote on where the parking meters are, whether they're gonna stay or get removed, or where they're gonna be placed? Or is it something that should stay with, which should be addressed by the full city council?
Leave it the way it is. The most would be to remove that one phrase, I think, that Councilor
Yeah.
Boudreau pointed out.
Is ratification a word that only is used with humans? Well, so I'd be if we ratified the decision, I'd be okay with that. But I don't want this to set precedent to change everything else, because I don't think anything else is of issue at this time. I don't know if the parking meters are of issue at this time, because I haven't really seen the Public Safety Committee really remove or add too many.
Right. I think the ratification process, unless anybody else has a better idea, I think it would be along the lines of my idea, where it would be referring it to a committee. The committee does a study report and it comes back. I think it's not really a ratification, but I think that's the only way to do it.
Well, ratification would mean the council had final say.
Right.
It would
Exactly.
be, that's
Somehow.
what ratification would be. And I don't believe that is, my own view is that I don't think it's necessary. It seems to be it seems to be a solution looking for a problem.
Why don't we take a straw vote? We get a sense of how people feel about it. Start with Craig. So a yes would be to change the ordinance and take out the part where that gives the Public Safety Committee authority.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes. What's that, 4 yeses?
Better do that again.
You gotta keep up with
Can't
that,
change your
man.
vote.
Please raise your hand if you want.
All no?
All those
4 yes.
that are opposed?
4 yes.
Let's just do the yeses. Yeses. 4.
7-4.
So, that's not, probably not gonna pass. It's on our agenda, right?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
on the calendar, yes.
Okay. Is there any further, does anybody else want to throw in 2 cents or 3 cents?
Got 3 minutes.
Motion to adjourn from the informal meeting.
All right. Call the informal meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody.
It's becoming more common.